I want you to picture a hacker. But, forget the hoodie, forget the dark room, definitely forget the laptop.
Right.
Instead, picture him in velvet robes, drop him in Florence, Italy, and set the date to 1486. He's 23 years old. He has zero computer skills, obviously. But he's trying to break into the most complex system there is.
Which isn't a bank or a government server, it's the human soul.
Exactly. And he's not trying to steal data, he's trying to rewrite the source code. We're talking about Giovanni Pico della Mirandola.
A name that most people, if they know it at all, connect with his oration on the dignity of man.
Yeah, and it's usually taught as this nice, flowery speech about how great humans are.
It's the live, laugh, love of the Renaissance if you just read the SparkNotes version. But we are not doing SparkNotes today.
No, we are not. We're looking at the argument from the Chameleon Protocol, Pico della Mirandola and the Science of Self-Creation.
And this book makes a pretty bold claim. He says we've completely misunderstood what Pico was doing. He wasn't writing poetry. He was writing a user manual.
A user manual for what we would call, biohacking or radical neuroplasticity. That's the hook that really got me. The author argues that Pico figured out that human beings are open-source software in a closed-source universe.
And that distinction is the absolute foundation for everything we're about to discuss. To get why Pico was so radical, you have to look at the factory setting of his world.
The medieval worldview.
Right. It wasn't just life is hard. It was life is a script. They called it the Great Chain of Being.
I remember this from history class. It's a super rigid hierarchy. Gods at the top, then angels, kings, commoners, animals.
All the way down to rocks. Everything has a fixed seat.
A fixed seat.
Precisely. If you were a rock, you fell. If you were a tiger, you hunted. If you were a serf, you farmed, and then you died. You didn't have potential. You had a definition.
You were running compiled code.
You were. You couldn't just wake up and decide to be something else any more than, say, Microsoft Word can decide it wants to be Excel.
And this is where Pico just throws a wrench in the whole machine. He looks at this great chain of being and says, wait a minute, there's a glitch.
He retells the Genesis creation story, but he changes the ending. In his version, God creates all the animals, the stars, the plants, and gives them all their specific natures, their code.
Okay.
But when he gets to man, he's run out of archetypes. The inventory is empty.
Which sounds like a terrible project management failure on God's part.
It sounds like a disaster. God tells Adam, I have given you no fixed seat, no form of thy own. But then he flips it. He says, because you have no form, you can be any form. You are the indeterminate variable.
This is the open source idea.
That's it?
A tiger is tiger version 1.0 forever. It can't patch itself. But a human is just the kernel. We have to write the rest of the OS ourselves.
And that, is terrifying.
Terrifying what? It sounds so empowering.
Because if you're open source, you have no excuses. If a tiger eats someone, it's just being a tiger. If a human acts like a beast, that's a choice. Pico is saying biology isn't destiny, it's a suggestion.
And the book connects this right to modern neuroscience.
It does. This is where I think it gets really interesting. It's easy to just throw the word neuroplasticity around.
Right.
But the book makes a really specific comparison to the default mode network, the DMN.
Okay, so break that down. What is that?
Think about your brain when you aren't doing anything specific. You're daydreaming or worrying about a bill or replaying some awkward conversation from 3 years ago.
I know that feeling.
That's the default mode network. It's an energy-saving protocol. It filters out 99% of reality so you don't get overwhelmed. It's your brain's factory setting.
It keeps us in that pre-scripted loop.
It keeps you safe and it keeps you static. The DMN is the biological version of that medieval great chain of being. It wants you in your lane. Pico's entire philosophy, his Chameleon Protocol, it's an attempt to gain root access to the brain and override that default filter.
Okay, so we have the theory. We're indeterminate. We can rewrite our code. But the problem with you can be anything is that, well, most people just freeze.
Paradox of choice.
Yeah. If I can be anything, I'll just sit on the couch and watch Netflix. How did Pico actually program the change?
Well, he wasn't a couch sitter. He was an aggressive, almost violent intellectual. He developed a method called syncretism.
This is the part that makes him sound like a mad scientist. He didn't just study one thing. He took systems that hated each other and just smashed them together.
That is the key. Most people, even today, read things that just confirm what they already know. That only strengthens the default mode network.
Right.
Pico did the opposite. He took rigid, hierarchical Catholic dogma and he smashed it into Jewish Kabbalah. which is all mystical and interpretive. Then he threw in Hermetic magic and Arab mathematics for good measure.
These are systems that are not supposed to talk to each other. It's like trying to run iOS apps on, I don't know, Windows 95.
And that incompatibility is the entire point. The book calls this sensory substitution for the soul. When you force your brain to reconcile two contradictory systems, you create friction. You create cognitive dissonance.
You're forcing the hardware to grow new connections just to handle the new software.
Exactly. You're physically altering your neural architecture. Pico believed that if you only consumed safe information, you develop a vegetable consciousness. You just grow where you're planted.
To ascend, you have to eat alien data. And he took this public, right? He didn't just hide in his study. He went to Rome, the heart of the church, and posted 900 theses.
900 bullet points of this syncretic code. He invited scholars from all over the world to come and debate him. He even offered to pay their travel expenses.
From a 23-year-old kid.
A 23-year-old kid telling the establishment, I've hacked the system, come and try to patch it.
And the establishment panicked. The Pope didn't just say no thanks. They threatened him with the Inquisition.
Because he was democratizing the divine. He was suggesting that truth wasn't a monopoly. If you could find God in the Kabbalah or in Egyptian magic, well, then you didn't need the Pope as the middleman. He was trying to make the source code public.
That brings up the environment. You can't pull a stunt like that in a vacuum. The book spends a lot of time on the Medici vortex. I think we tend to see these historical figures as lonely geniuses, but Pico was part of a crew.
The lonely genius is a total myth.
Yeah.
You cannot overclock your brain in isolation. You need a reactor core. For Pico, that was the Villa Correggi in Florence, funded by Lorenzo de' Medici.
Lorenzo the Magnificent. The guy with the money and the power.
Yes, but maybe the more important figure for Pico was Angelo Poliziano.
The sharpest blade.
Poliziano was a brilliant scholar, a poet, and he was arrogant. He and Pico were best friends, but they were also rivals. They were constantly debating. The book calls their relationship iron sharpening iron.
So it wasn't a support group. It was more of a fight club.
An intellectual fight club. If Pico had a weak idea, Poliziano would destroy it. If Poliziano got lazy, Lorenzo would challenge him. The vortex is this idea that intelligence is contagious. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You stagnate.
Okay, so we have the method, which is syncretism, and the environment, the vortex. Now let's look at the actual schematic. The book details Pico's cognitive stack.
Yes.
He argued that inside every one of us, there are seeds of different potential beings.
This is the roadmap. He says we contain a multitude. At the very bottom, you have the vegetable, or vegetalis.
Which sounds like an insult, but let's be specific. This isn't just about being dumb.
No, not at all. It's about passivity. A plant doesn't choose, it just absorbs. It reacts to sunlight and water. In modern terms, the vegetable state is passive consumption, doom scrolling, binge watching.
Letting the algorithm feed you. It's comfortable, though. That's the danger, right? Being a vegetable is easy.
It's the path of least resistance. But you atrophy there. So above that, you have the beast, or sensualis. This is reactive emotion.
This is the chemical weather.
Yes. Rage, lust, fear, tribalism. When you get cut off in traffic and you feel that immediate spike of adrenaline and anger, that is the beast taking the wheel. You aren't acting. You're being acted upon by your biology.
A puppet to cortisol and dopamine.
Exactly. But then there's the angel, intellectualis. And we have to strip the religious baggage from this word. He isn't talking about wings and harps.
He means metacognition.
The ability to think about your thinking. And pattern recognition. The angel is that state of mind where you see the connections. It's what athletes call the zone, or what programmers call flow.
You're operating above the noise of the beast and the lethargy of the vegetable.
But the book really emphasizes that this is a binary outcome. Gravity pulls you down. If you're not actively climbing, you are falling.
That's the scary part of the oration. Use it or lose it. If you don't actively cultivate the angel, your brain will just default to the beast or the vegetable.
It's an entropy issue. Order requires energy. Chaos is free.
So how do you generate that energy? The book lays out Pico's ascent, a 3-stage process: purgation, illumination, and perfection. I want to look at this through that hacker analogy.
Okay. Purgation is the firewall and the antivirus software. You can't run high-performance code on a system that's clogged with malware.
And for Pico, malware was the passions, those reactive, beastly emotions.
Right. Purgation is the discipline of detaching from the noise. In our world, this would be like a dopamine detox, putting your phone in the other room, just stopping the constant drip of information.
Creating silence.
You have to lower the noise floor. Once you do that, you move to illumination. This is the syncretism we talked about. This is the gem. You're feeding the brain complex patterns, dialectic, philosophy. You are building the architecture.
And then finally, perfection. This is the one that sounds the most mystical.
It is, but it's also biological. Pico calls it the kiss of the one. Modern neuroscience calls it transient hypofrontality.
Let's break that down.
Okay, so the prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain. It handles planning, worrying, self-consciousness, time. In deep flow states or deep meditative states, that part of the brain actually quiets down. It shuts down.
So you stop thinking and you just start being.
The boundary between the thinker and the thought just dissolves. You aren't trying to solve the problem, you are the solution. That's what Pico meant by merging with the Godhead. It wasn't about dying and going to heaven. It was about achieving a state of perfect cognitive efficiency right here on Earth.
Which brings us to the so what question. This is fascinating history, but how do we use the Chameleon Protocol today? The book has a whole section on practical application, and the first idea is identity fluidity.
Right, and this really challenges our modern obsession with authenticity. We love to say, I have to be true to myself.
I'm an introvert, I'm a creative, I'm a morning person.
We treat those labels like they're permanent tattoos. Pico would say they're just clothes. If you say, I am an introvert, you've just hard-coded a limitation into your operating system. You've closed the source code.
But isn't it fake to just swap personalities? If I walk into a meeting and act like an extrovert, am I not just lying?
That's the trap. Think about a toolbox. If you use a hammer, are you being fake because you're not a screwdriver? No, you're using the right tool for the job. Pico argues your personality traits are tools. The real you, the indeterminate variable, is the entity that chooses the tool.
So the authenticity isn't in the tool, it's in the choice.
Correct. The Chameleon Protocol means scanning the situation and asking, what does this moment require? Does it require the lion for courage, the owl for wisdom, the ox for patience? You run the script that solves the problem. You don't say, oh, I can't do that, I'm a Pisces.
It's taking radical responsibility. Another tool the book mentions is the syncretic diet. We touched on this, but practically, what does that look like?
It means auditing what you consume. If you look at your browser history or your bookshelf and it's all one flavor, you're malnourished. The practical advice is this. Read the manual for a machine you don't own. Study a religion you don't believe in. Read a political philosopher you despise.
I love that machine you don't own idea. It forces your brain to understand a logic structure that has no immediate use for you.
But that's where the magic happens. Synthesis is often invisible. You might read a book on mycology, on mushrooms, and 3 weeks later you're looking at a corporate org chart, and suddenly you see it like a mycelial network. You solve a business problem using biological logic. That's the angel working. That's pattern recognition.
You can't connect the dots if you don't collect the dots.
That's it, exactly.
There's one more piece of practical advice I found really striking. Causal linguistics, the magic of the word.
Yes, Pico was deep into Kabbalah, which views language as generative, the idea that God spoke the world into existence. It sounds esoteric, but it's pure behavioral psychology. Words are code. They are executable files.
Give me an example of how we misuse this.
Just listen to how people talk. I'm dying for a coffee. I'm so stressed. I'm a mess. When you say I am stressed, you are giving your nervous system a direct command.
You're validating a threat.
You're validating a threat state. Your body responds by dumping cortisol. You are literally casting a spell on yourself.
So if I change the syntax, I can change the physiology.
Try it. Instead of I am anxious, try saying I am preparing or I am mobilizing energy. The physical sensation might be the same. Your heart rate's up. You're alert. But the framing changes how your brain processes it. One is a threat, the other is a tool. You program your reality with your internal monologue.
It's debugging. You're going through your own code and removing the lines that make the system crash.
And you have to do it constantly, because the default setting is always trying to reinstall itself.
Which brings us back to the core message of this whole deep dive. The Renaissance. We look at the art, the statues, the architecture, and we think, wow, they were talented. But the book argues that the Renaissance wasn't really a display of talent. It was a decision.
It was a decision to reject the factory settings. It was a collective agreement to stop looking down at the mud and start looking up at the potential. They decided that humans weren't broken, fixed things. They were unfinished masterpieces.
It puts the ball squarely in our court. It's empowering, but it's also a heavy burden. If I'm not a finished product, then I'm responsible for the sculpture.
That's the challenge Pico leaves us with.
Yeah.
You have the root axis, you have the seeds, the vegetable, the beast, the angel. You are the indeterminate variable.
The marble is waiting.
So the question isn't who are you? The question is what will you build?
On that note, go pick up a chisel. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.